It is. Hi, it's super nice to see all of you here. My name is Emily VanHoff. I am a designer and an artist, and I live in Chicago. Right now, I'm mostly making quilted wall hangings, which you can find on my Instagram, which is at Emily VanHoff, or my website, which is emilyvanhoff.com. I have been teaching one class a month in partnership with Fiskars and Michaels. And today's class are the Upcycled Patchwork shorts. We will be keeping an eye on the chat. So if you have any questions as we're going, feel free to throw a question in there. We also have a representative from Fiskars who's here as well, Tia. So if you have any questions about the Fiskars tools that I'm using, you can ask that question in the chat and she can answer those as well. And as always, we would love to see your finished projects. So you can tag me at Emily VanHoff or Fiskars and Michaels and use the hashtag #MakeItWithMichaels. I also have a blog post on how to do this, and the recording of this class will be available there at some point as well. So I think Tia has the link to that blog post. She'll put in the chat at some point if you need to refer back to that if you miss anything. So I think we're ready to get started. Obviously, let's see, and these are two samples that I have made. You've probably already seen this pair. This is another pair that I made with some different colors that I think are very fun. So that's what we're going to be doing. The first step, obviously, is to find a pair of jeans, whether that be a pair in your closet that you don't wear anymore, or maybe grab a pair at the thrift store. And you can also just start with a pair of shorts if you prefer. Either way totally works. So you're going to start by trying them on and just figuring out how long you want them. And I like to just fold my hem up just one turn. So I add a little bit of length with that. So keep that in mind as you mark where you want to cut them. I've already marked on here where I want my length to be. So I'm going to cut that. Also, we're going to be using these Fiskars Renew scissors today. They are brand new and they are made of completely recycled materials, both the handle and the blades. So that feels super fitting for an upcycle class. All right, so lay them flat. I'm going to go through just kind of one layer. One leg at a time, make it a little easier to cut. Straight across. And then use that line as a marker to cut the other leg. And then you can always use the extra legs for another project at some point. Once you have them cut as you like them, you can definitely try them on again at this point and make sure that they're still, that they're a length that you like, you know, maybe start a little bit longer. Try them on, and then you can always cut them shorter, you can't cut them longer. So that's step one. And the next thing you're going to do is decide what side you want your patchwork to go on. And we're going to take the pocket off. I have this one already halfway taken off, so you don't have to watch me struggle with a seam ripper for too long. So yeah, you're going to take your seam ripper, and the top corners are definitely always the hardest. They got a bunch of stitching there, and just to make sure, you know, it's a high stress point on the pocket. So they put a ton of stitching there and it takes a little bit of work to get through all of that. So just kind of, I mean, be careful, you don't want to rip a hole in the actual fabric itself. You want to make sure you're only getting the threads. So go kind of carefully. Usually the thread on your jeans is going to be a different color than the fabric itself. You can kind of just like look for those stitches that are in a different color and try to just get your seam ripper under those. Just a little closer. I got these jeans at the thrift store and they're super fun. The pocket is already like two-toned, which is cool. Adds to the patchwork quality of them. All right, usually once you get it started, it gets a little bit easier. We're almost through this top little bit here. There we go. And then once you get the top corner, it's pretty easy to just kind of pull those two layers apart, rip the threads as it sort of gives resistance. Make sure you save the pocket, and we're going to put them back on, so don't put it away. But once you've ripped it off, you're going to go in, kind of leaves, let's see, leaves all the threads behind. We'll just pull all of those out and clean it up a little bit. We're going to do that both on the pocket and on the shorts themselves. So put the pocket to the side. You want to lose that. We'll need it later. And then got all these extra threads in here that should just pull out pretty easily. All right, so we've got our pocket removed. And the next step is to make the pattern piece that will cover sort of this right edge of the shorts here. So I've got a piece of muslin. You can sort of use whatever fabric you have. It helps if it's like a little bit thin. And we're going to trace our pattern onto here. I always start with the sort of inside seam here, the one that sort of goes through the pocket, and keep that as a straight line. So I'm going to just kind of like fold the edge over here so that we get a nice straight line, and then open it back up. As far as placement goes, I kind of keep it sort of parallel with the edge of the pocket here, and then just in as much as you want. Move in a little bit farther. Like right there looks pretty good. Yeah, so fold your straight line, flip it back over, take a pen and just kind of trace it down where that fold line happens. And at this point, make sure you're not shifting your fabric around. Keep it in the same spot as you draw your pattern. And then you can see where I have it placed here. It kind of goes like just below where this seam is across here, and then follows down the edge of this seam there. So if you can't like see through your fabric very well, you can totally just feel where that seam is and trace along there. It doesn't have to be perfect, and it's better for it to be too big rather than too small. So I'm kind of just tracing like right in the center of that seam. And then follow it down the side. And again, I'm just kind of like feeling through the fabric to see where that seam is happening. And then across the bottom here. All right. So this is the size that we want our finished pattern piece to be, but we need a little bit of seam allowance all the way around the edge. So I'm going to take my clear ruler and I'm going to line the edge of the ruler up. Well, line the 1/2 inch mark up with where I drew. So we're basically just making this pattern piece a 1/2 inch bigger. And if your lines here curve a little bit, you just kind of move your ruler as needed to give you that 1/2 inch. And again, don't worry about too much about making it like super perfect. It just needs to be like close. And then add that extra 1/2 inch down this side. And this one should be a fully straight line. So make sure you're making that one straight. And then 1/2 inch across the bottom. So this is our pattern piece. We can cut that out along the outside line here. And let's see, it's also probably a good idea to mark which side is the top, since they're a little bit, it's not like super easy to tell which side is the top. It looks like this is the top of mine, so I'm just gonna mark that so I don't forget later. Okay, so we've got our pattern piece. The next step is going to be to make our patchwork panel. And that is going to end up needing to be the same size as this, or just like a little bit bigger so that we can cut it out. And in order to decide sort of how big we need our strips, you can either just kind of guess, make it a little bit bigger than you think you're going to need to, or you can do a little bit of math. Well, I don't know if you can tell. This is the one I did earlier. I kind of sketched in the lines of my squares. I'll pull out one of these samples here. So you can see on this one, I've got 2 different sections. The squares on the top, their finished size is 1 1/4 inch squares, and the squares on the bottom are 1 3/4. So to figure out how many, okay, back up a second. We're gonna make these patchwork pieces using something called strip piecing. So it's absolutely an option to just cut out all of these squares and sew them together individually. But I'm gonna show you how to do it in a slightly easier way. So we're going to start out with strips, and to decide how many strips you need, you can count sort of how many rows you have. So here we've got 4 rows. So we'll need 2 of each color. And then to decide how long those strips need to be, you can measure sort of the length of those rows, which is about what we have here. It's always better to overshoot. So it's like about 8 inches. And then you need to add a 1/2 inch of seam allowance for each of the seams here. So that's like 1/2 inch, 1 inch, 1.5 inches, 2 inches. So we'll add 2 inches to the 8, that's 10 inches. And then I just add like a couple more inches to be on the safe side. So we're gonna say like maybe 13 inch, 12 or 13 inch wide pieces. And we'll sort of do the same thing for both the top and the bottom there. So let's see. We'll cut the strips of 2 colors. So like I said, this we're gonna do, right now I'm gonna make this bottom one. These squares, like I said, are 1 3/4 inches. And we need a 1/4 inch seam allowance on either side. So we're gonna cut these at 2 1/4 inches. And I said we needed, let's see, we need 2 strips of each of the colors on about like 13 inches long. And this is over 13 inches, so we will be more than safe. And I have all of this explained on my blog too. I'll refer back to that. All right, so those are 2 strips of one color, and we need 2 strips of the other color. You're always going to want to make sure you have an even number of strips. So if you've got, if you need like an odd number of strips to go across the size of your pattern piece, just add an extra one to make sure that you come out to an even number. All right, so these are 2 1/4. You're going to sew these together, alternating colors. Machine here. We're going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So put the 2 different colors together. Sew that at a 1/4 inch. And the more precise you are in these steps, the better the like corners of your squares will line up. So it's good to be pretty careful here. So purple to the yellow. And then add the last piece. Again, using 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then we're going to iron these seams open. I'm right over here and I'm pressing that. Give it a good iron. Making sure your seams are nice and flat definitely helps make the next step a lot easier. So it's an important step. Don't skip the ironing. Right. So at this point, we're going to come back in and we're going to cut the same width of strips that we started with across sort of perpendicularly to those first strips that we cut. So first I'm going to kind of just square the end off here. And then these were 2 1/4 inch strips. So I'm going to line my ruler up here at 2 1/4 along the left edge there. Just cut these. And then just repeat that all the way across. So you can see here, we kind of flip every other strip the opposite direction. You can see how that's starting to form our checkerboard. So at that point, you're just going to sew all of these strips together again. I've got one that's like already basically finished. I'm just going to sew another one of these on the end here. Make sure you're doing opposite colors together. And you want to, let's see, want to make sure that your seams are lining up. You could certainly pin it so that your seams are matched up. I just kind of hold it in place as I go. And again, this will be a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then we're going to press these seams open as well. I got this one started just to save us a little bit of time, but obviously you'll do the same thing, just sew those strips together all the way across. We got our finished little checkerboard there. And they're going to do the same thing with the other color. Also an option just to do the whole panel in one checkerboard, but I like the look of two checkerboards together. So I made this one earlier today as well. Again, done the exact same way, just with smaller strips. These finished squares are 1 1/4 inch, which means that my strips that I started with are 1 3/4. And I did the same. I did the same as I did for this one, which is 4 strips, 2 of each color, and they're about like 12 to 13 inches long. That's what works for the size of patch that I'm using. Obviously that will change depending on the size, but probably a good place to start from anyway. And then we're going to sew these 2 panels together. Line them up, that will be a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Make sure your seams continue to lay flat as you sew. Sometimes the bottom one, your seam will kind of want to flip the opposite direction. So just sort of pay attention to that. And we will iron this seam open as well. I need to make sure I get like a good flat press on that. And then we've got our finished panel. So from this point, if you didn't want to do the patchwork, you could just do one single piece of fabric. So you could basically follow the instructions starting at this point. You can skip the patchwork part. Make sure our pattern piece fits in here. So it's just tall enough. So we're going to cut this out. You can pin it down if you would like. Just following the edge of our pattern piece. All right. So this is now ready to attach to our shorts. The center seam here, which is the perfectly straight one, I'm going to start by ironing that under just about 1/2 inch. So I'll take that over to my pressing mat. And at this point, it does not have to be perfect by any means, just kind of eyeball it. I'm going to get a nice straight line down the middle seam here. And then line that up about where you traced it, and you'll want the top of your piece to be a ½ inch or so above this top seam, and then make sure you've got enough over here along this seam that you're overlapping it again by about a ½ inch. Does not need to be perfect, but just make sure you give yourself enough room to be able to fold that piece under. So that looks like it's in a pretty good spot. I'm gonna come in with my pins and pin this center seam first. Make sure you're only pinning through this top layer of the shorts. And then to pin the other seams under, we're just going to start folding that, folding those seams to the inside. I'll take that over to my ironing board here. Make sure everything's laying flat. And just sort of iron over top of everything. Loosely here. And then throw some pins across that edge. You can see here on my sample one, I'm kind of going like just below where this seam is here. And then just right down this side seam as well. So that's where we want our folds to go. And just kind of double check as you pin that the shorts are still laying flat and you don't have any sort of wrinkles underneath your patch. And then for mine on the bottom, since I want to be able to fold this bottom up a little bit, I'm going to actually fold this up a little bit higher than the bottom hem, just so that when I fold up that bottom piece, it's not as bulky. Right, so if I put it just about there, then I can fold this piece over top of that. So I'm gonna iron that seam in there. And then since that's folded up quite a bit, I'm just gonna kind of cut off some excess here. Fold that guy under and pin it in place. If you've got little corners here that are sticking out a little bit like that, you can just kind of fold fold those in on an angle so that you don't see them. And again, make sure you're only pinning through the top layer. All right, so we've got that pinned in place. We can go ahead and start sewing it down. So got some thread here. I'm going to do a double thickness on this thread, so I'll tie a knot with sort of both. Tie the ends together there. And I don't like to work with a very long piece of thread just because you're more likely to get tangled that way. So start fairly short. I'd rather tie it off more often than deal with a bunch of knots. So I'm going to start. Let's see. I've got my needle. I'm going to start with it coming up through the bottom and just catch a tiny bit of the edge of your patch here. And then, see if I can hold this closer. You're going to go down through your denim and then come back up maybe a quarter inch or so away and just catch a tiny piece of the edge there. Pull that through. And then go back down just through the shorts, but like right next to where your stitch had come up previously. And just work your way all the way around. Yeah, I'll see if I can make this a little bit lower. It's easier. Okay. And again, if you don't want to do the patchwork look, you could totally do just a solid, like a solid color of fabric for your patch. You could do a patterned fabric. There's lots of fun options. You could do a sort of like a different quilting pattern. There's lots of ways to kind of switch this up and make it your own and experiment with some different ideas. The sort of color block look is sort of on trend right now. So I think even just a solid color would be really cool. I sort of want to sew patches on everything that I own at this point. It's pretty fun. Right. So I'm not going to go all the way around. You don't have to watch me do the whole thing, but I'm going to get just far enough that I can show you how to put the pocket back on. But you will be going all the way around the whole patch. I will finish mine up later. Let's see. Got pen all over my hands. It was a bad choice of pens. And again, my stitches are maybe like a quarter inch or so apart. Again, when you get to this corner, kind of fold that extra bit in. Like just barely make it to the corner here with my thread. right, so when you get to the end of your thread, you're just going to stick your needle through to the back. And then take just a tiny little piece of your denim, pull your needle through, and then stick your needle back through that little loop that gets formed. Pull that tight. Usually do that like 2 or 3 times just to be extra cautious. Oops. And trim it off. And like I said, you'll keep going all the way around. For now, I'm just going to leave those, leave the rest of it pinned in place so that I can show you how to finish the pocket. So grab your pocket from wherever you've been saving it. And you're going to line it back up with where it was placed before. You can kind of see where it was sewn down before. So just kind of pin it back in its spot. And sort of double check. You can also tell on the inside for this corner, right about where it should be. Just kind of feel, make sure that's about in the right spot. And I'm just kind of putting a pin on each corner. And an extra one here on the sides. Right. And then for just a little bit of extra pizzazz, I'm using some DMC floss. Just for like a little bit of a contrast color there. Cut a length of that, tie a knot at the end. Got a little bit of a bigger sewing needle here. We're going to be using all 6 strands, so it's pretty thick. We'll be sewing this on using a back stitch, which I'll show you in a moment. Again, start with your needle. On the inside, we're going to start with the corner. The corners are super thick because there's a bunch of layers of fabric happening there, so these are like a little bit trickier. It's kind of hard to get your needle through all the layers. But what you're going to do, start with the stitch, and then you move your needle about a stitch length down from there, and then put the needle back through the end of your last stitch. Let's see, I'll show you a little bit better once we get off this corner. These are annoying to get through all the layers.
Emily, while you're working on that, some people have questions about your adorable jewelry you're wearing.
Ooh.
Where do you get it? Where's it from?
Where are all my rings from? Probably nowhere helpful. This one was a gift from my parents for my high school graduation. I've got this amazing, I don't know if you can see that, this amazing like hand holding an opal. That's a vintage piece that I found on Etsy. And then I've got my wedding rings, which are we had designed by a jeweler. And then this cute little guy. I don't know if you'll be able to see that. It's got like a little sunshine stamped in it. And that's also from somebody on Etsy. So all over the place. I love rings, so I always keep an eye out for the best ones. Yeah, there's one on my list that I really want from Marrow Fine. They're on Instagram. If you are familiar with them, that's a great place to look for rings. All right, so now I've got a little bit of a line going here. It's a little easier to see what I'm doing. You're going to take your needle, come up about a stitch length away from your last stitch. Pull your needle through, and then you're going to go back down through the same spot that you ended your last stitch on. And then you'll keep doing that all the way around. And I like this stitch for here because it gives you like a continuous line. Instead of like if you were to do like a standard running stitch, you get, you know, a gap between each stitch. And I think the like solid line makes for a nice like bold contrast with the embroidery floss. So yeah, it's basically just more of this all the way around the whole pocket, which you certainly do not need to watch the entire thing. I will show you, oh, I got caught on a pin here. You get a good sense of what it will look like when it's done, and I'll show you on this pair. You can see I followed both. There's like 2 lines of stitching, and I followed both of them around this one, which is probably overkill. You really probably only have to do the outside line. That'll be enough to hold the pocket on, but I think it looks nice to have both of those stitched in there. So I think that's everything for the class. Why do you prefer to hand stitch the pocket back on instead of the machine? Honestly, I just really like the look of like the thicker embroidery floss. You certainly could use your machine. It's like a little bit annoying to maneuver a machine around when like the pants are finished, but that's certainly an option. Any tips for keeping the rotary cutter straight, even when cutting against a ruler? I mean, it probably just takes a little bit of practice. Let's try to think if I have any. You definitely want to like make sure you're pressing down on your ruler so that that's not moving. And then, yeah, I don't know. I guess I just kind of like push it in towards the ruler while I'm cutting. Let's see, any recommendations or concerns for washing? I definitely would pre-wash your fabrics just so that they are cotton, so they'll probably shrink a little bit, and you want them to do all their shrinking before you sew them down. But once everything is sewn down, I think you would be fine to just wash it as regular. I mean, maybe wash it in cold just to be extra safe, but I think that would be fine. Let's see. You definitely, there's a question about adding them to pre-made shorts. You definitely could just add the patchwork to pre-made shorts. Yeah, no reason why that wouldn't work. What's the name of the Instagram account? Excellent question. Do you baste or tape edges before pre-washing? I do not, and it does make for like a little bit of a frayed mess, but I just then cut all of the frayed edges off. Yeah, it's probably a good idea to do that. I will type in this jewelry account here. Is that how it's spelled? Marrow. Yes. That's a jewelry account I like. I don't have anything from them yet, but they're definitely on my list. Let's see. If you missed the beginning, you can go, there's a link up at the top of the chat to a blog post that shows all the step-by-step instructions. And then also once the recording of this class is available in a couple days, it will be posted there as well. But I did not use any interfacing. Yep. Yeah, sounds like you basically have the process down there. Feel free to keep adding questions in there if you want. I'm going to show you what we're making next month. We've got these little sort of graphic colored zipper tote or zipper pouch things, and they have expandable sides so you can fit more stuff in them. They're like a fun, you know, like tote bag organizing sort of a thing. And Tia just put the link to that class in here as well. Yes, the fabric that I used for the pattern was muslin. Any other questions? Yeah, I would love to see you at the next class, and definitely remember, if you make a pair of these, I'd absolutely love to see your version. So tag me so I can see those. That would be very fun. Other than that, link doesn't work for the next class. If the link just takes you to like the generic class page instead of like my specific class, you can type my name, Emily VanHoff, into the search bar and it should come up. I've been having a hard time linking to like my specific class page. I don't know if anyone else has a better suggestion than that. Was muslin only used for making a pattern template? That's the only place that we used muslin. I'm not sure. Yeah, the muslin was just for the pattern piece. The fabric that I used for everything else is quilting cotton. The link is working. Cool. Awesome. See, doesn't look like we've got any more questions. Yeah. Page 6. Cool. Yeah, have a lot of fun making these. I know I'm gonna be wearing mine all summer. So would love to see what you make. Other than that, I think we're all set for tonight. So thanks for joining, everybody. Enjoy the sunshine if it is also sunny where you live. And I will see you next month.